Peace, family. I believe we are live. How y'all doing? This is another broadcast of Melanated Solutions Media. I'm one of your hosts, Kashama Sankofa. We have the beautiful Bliss down here with us, as well as our brother Duke. Y'all want to say hey to the people?
Hey, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
All right. So before we go ahead and before I turn everything over to Duke to do the family feedback, I want to get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. We want to remind you all to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube to Melanated Solutions Media. If you are joining us on Facebook, go ahead and like or hit the heart button, share, do what you got to do. We also ask that you go ahead and migrate right over to YouTube and watch us from there also. And keep in mind, family, we will drop a link into the chat so that you can join us sometime within the program. With that being said, Duke, Bliss, y'all ready to get this going?
All right, well, let me hit up with the family feedback for a sec. So last time we all joined you, we were talking about surviving white history. And we just have a couple of comments from the people. Boosie Latham had mentioned, hey, kings and queen. Glad to see you again, Bliss. Roger Williams said, hey, y'all. We also had some commentary from Maurice Franklin. We were talking about and criticizing Joe Biden, and in our opinions, rightfully so. But one of the commenters disagreed, said day 10, and we are never satisfied. So this is from Maurice Franklin, and so, you know, we value all opinions here. And it is
we
also
sick.
important to...
Said we sick, boss?
We sick. I'm not going there with you. I'm not doing that at all. But we also had mentioned, also from our producer here, who had mentioned that we forget that the economic strategy for America was actually built using popsicles to start with. So you learn about many different kinds of things coming from the Melanated Solutions Media. Adam's probably gonna have to answer that for himself. I ain't got no proof of that, y'all. But that was our family feedback session. If you want to check into that live stream, be sure to follow the YouTube. All of our videos are up there on Melanated Solutions Media.
All right, thank you for that, then, Duke. And remember, y'all, put stuff in the chat. We appreciate that. We appreciate the feedback. And without further ado, let's go ahead and roll our current events. Okay, so first thing, very important update in the Kawan Charles case, the Kawan Charles case. Janet Irving has been arrested in connection with that case. However, she's only been arrested for failure to report a missing child.
Mm-hmm. Not for murder, not for kidnapping, just being aware of a crime.
Should we remind the folks of this case of the details who Kawan Charles was?
If you would take that away.
Kawan Charles was the story we talked about several months ago, where the young man left his home to meet supposedly with a friend and the friend's mother. He gets into the car with the mom and the other. They were both 15. I think the friend is 15. Kawan was 15. Is that correct?
The friend is 17.
The friend is 17. Okay.
And Kawan is 15, but is developmentally disabled or delayed. And so he has a very small appearance and, you know, doesn't really look his age.
Right. And he gets into the car with the two people, the mom and the son. And the next time he's found, he's in a sugar field, face down, with questionable cuts and contusions on his face and all over his body. And the mom, prior to this, had been questioned by the police, but fled her wherever she was living at the time. The city, I think she was one city away where she lived, had been allowed, because I don't think you flee when nobody comes after you. You're not really fleeing if you leave and nobody comes after you. She was allowed to leave. And here we are months later, and she's arrested on failure to report a child. Was that what it was?
Yeah, because no matter what, she was the last seen person with this child. Um, and the
Which is
story is
common
still.
sense, though.
Mhm.
Like that was the minimum. That's what she was supposed to get picked up on the very day they found out she was the last person with that child. You know what I'm saying? And now what we should be looking at is the escalation of charges, but instead we're looking at the bare minimum.
Bare minimum.
The
Because
bare
common
minimum.
sense, you never have someone's child in your care, and then you don't have them, and you just forget all about it like it don't matter.
When you see a minimal charge like that, you know that the prosecution was grasping at straws. They were trying to find something to pin to her that they thought would stick. And I don't think this is going to stick, to be quite honest. I
Yeah.
think that this is, unless they get some real evidence within that car or somebody confesses. I don't want to be the, like the Debbie Downer, but unless
No,
they
it's
get some
completely
physical
understandable. I mean,
evidence, I thought that the case would have been solved, or what would have been helped by the body itself. But you had too many people, even the second autopsy, that the contusions and the markings on the body were inconclusive. They were able to both say, even though I don't agree with it, that all of the marks and scars and bruising on the body happened after death in the water, which is, I guess if you're claiming some kind of animal or insect ate at the body, or I don't know how you bruise the body that's already dead if it's just lying down. But that's what they're claiming. So this is going to be, it's not going to get a lot of news media either.
yeah,
It's really
this
not.
story is not being covered in a way
No,
that um, events like this should be covered. Like this little
right.
boy and the contusions and things that is on his face, the way that there's holes where there shouldn't have been holes, the body. And forgive me for comparisons, but it looks very similar to an Emmett Till's type situation,
Yeah.
and the body is just not respected. And the media is not covering this story. But far as like your concerns about how these charges are going to work out, I mean, it's very similar to me about what happened with Breonna Taylor. Like we got to remember that the cops were charged for the bullets that missed, not for any that hit the family or
Right.
anything else. It was legitimately for the bullets that missed.
Right.
And so we're seeing a real narrative continue to grow when it
Mhm.
comes to charging white people in Black death.
Yep.
So yeah, family, please, keep your eyes open and watch that case and do your part. We here in the New Black Media, we're doing our part, but we all are part of the New Black Media. That's the thing. You should share this information. You should put this out here. You have to beat the drum and pound the pavement as well. But so moving on from that, we also have another very disturbing development in our community that has happened. Whereas T.I. and Tiny have been accused of some very horrible things, from ranging from the sexual abuse of minors, giving girls drugs in order to sexually abuse them, as well as trafficking is what they're being
Mhm.
accused of, among other stuff, really, to be honest with you. But those are probably some of the worst of what they're being accused of. Y'all heard
As
about
of
that, haven't you?
Yes, as of
Mhm.
15 hours ago, they have a second accuser.
Ooh,
So
really?
the story now, I did a glossary look into this story because I mean, you just don't know what to check for and believe. But apparently, if you're listening to T.I. and Tiny, their story is that there's this woman who I forget her name at this moment, who's the first
Sabrina
accuser.
Peterson.
Thank
Sabrina
you.
Peterson, thank
Yeah.
you. Sabrina Peterson, who they've had long-standing negative interactions with, who's been trying to get over on them for quite some time, and then suddenly decided to craft this narrative for the media. That's their story. But as I stated, as of 15 hours ago, they did get a second accuser. And honestly, for me, I just don't. I mean, I don't have a clear as far as what to believe or not. But I mean, I do remember that probably about 6 to 7 months before this story dropped, we had Naomi Campbell being on one of those lists and Will Smith being on one of those lists. As far as supposedly, this is when
Well, I
That
was
was
yeah,
gonna
a
say
different.
Naomi Campbell. Well, her name came up because she was
mhm,
connected to Jeffrey Epstein.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yes, with the islands. But the story is that the anonymous group, when they posted the list of celebrities that supposedly had all these different connections with Epstein, with his private island and allusions to possibly dealing in pedophilia. So it's just all of this stuff is coming up at one time, and I just, I think it's just a story to be cautious about. What I find interesting about it, people have noted this on Twitter, that the people who have come to the defense of T.I. and Tiny, the story is that all of them say that Tiny and T.I. are good people, but none of them have actually came out outright and said they did not do this.
Right.
So this is something that Twitter respondents are paying attention to at this time.
Well, with this story, I covered the story on, here I go on Everybody Loves Bliss. So my podcast, we covered
yes.
it.
Go check it out, people. Go check it out. You want more Bliss?
You have to remind us to shout it out, Bliss. But go ahead, please.
Good. You ain't got to worry because I'm gonna do it. So, no, but seriously, we covered it, and I wanted to, and I said first with Sabrina Peterson, and I don't want to sound insensitive, but initially when I saw the story, I thought to myself, so here's somebody who has had a toxic relationship with T.I. and Tiny for years. They've had a talk because they've gone back and forth. This is not the friend of T.I. and Tiny's, the chick Shakina, who, was the hairdresser and the friend. They go back and forth. So when I saw it, like you, Duke, I was like, I don't really care. Because here's what happens when you have money. People will sign up for your bullshit. People sign up for abuse because you have money. And then when they can't get what they want, or they're into the contract or the bargain, they're not happy, then they come forth with these stories. I'm not saying this is what happened with Sabrina Peterson, but when I saw it, that's what I saw initially. A friend of theirs is accusing T.I. putting a gun to her head, and on other occasions doing other things. Well, if you stayed after somebody put a gun to your head and continued a relationship with these people, then, I just, not that I don't have empathy, I just, that's where I cut out. When I started to pay attention to the story is when they started talking about sex trafficking underage girls, because now we're talking about people who are predators, because we're talking about, there were suggestions that at their concerts, at T.I.'s concerts specifically, that they had people who would come into the audience and see young girls and bring them backstage like fans and participate in illicit activity with them. Then I started paying attention, because now we all got a problem with you.
Yeah.
Okay. Because we want to know that I want to know that my niece can go to a concert, even though I don't know what my niece would be doing at a T.I. concert. But if her mama let her go to the concert, that she would be safe and not have predators from these celebrity predators coming after them under the guise of getting an opportunity to meet the stars. Because that's how that works.
You reminded me of a tweet. It says you reminded me of a tweet that you may enjoy.
Okay.
Someone said, "I'm sorry, but anyone that checks their daughter's hymen is guilty until proven innocent." When it comes to these allegations,
I wasn't gonna go there, but that was crazy enough.
My take on this might be a little bit different than you all. I think it's not that different, because I definitely agree. That's what perked my ears up when I started hearing the trafficking allegations and the minors. But one thing I am very cautious of is that it's so easy to convict Black people, especially some Black male, without, without a shred of evidence, really.
Well,
I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of this situation not being handled correctly, and possible victims, falling through the cracks, because that could happen. I mean,
Sabrina,
right now there's a lot of stuff is being put out there, and I listened to one woman's testimony, not the friend. There was another woman who said she almost went out to meet T.I. And that's the story that I heard. That story that was being taken by a lot of people, saying, "Oh yeah, you dodged the bullet, and he probably this and he's probably that." But her story was that she actually never flew out, but she almost went, and she could only imagine what would have happened to her. So that's the story that I heard, and that was the only person that had came forward at the time.
Because what Sabrina is suggesting now is that she's interviewing victims. I don't know if she's doing that to present it to the police, or she's planning on a documentary a la Surviving R. Kelly. I don't know what her intentions are, but even the friend Shakina, who has been all over the media doing all kinds of nonsense.
Doth thou protest too much?
Okay, well, she came forward and suggested not that it didn't happen, but that people signed up for it. That they were abusive, but the people who were abused signed up for it. And a lot of times people do sign up for it.
Well, I think because I watched the Chicana video, and I think that what as far as abuse, she was talking about T.I. and Tiny and their marriage and the type of sexual, things they engage in, such as threesomes or swinging and stuff like that. That can be looked at as abusive if you want to look at, the money or influence that he has or something like that. But I mean, she was very careful to really keep it within that realm around this is what, they probably do. But then she kept trying to distance herself from it at the same time. And then she went on this rant talking about what she don't do and how holy she is. And so the whole thing is just turning into a big mess. And I think we're losing sight of a process that we need to start going through as a people of actual deductive, like a process of looking at proof and evidence and not having this whole subjective thing going on, which is what I saw a lot of
in people's private lives. You don't get that. We don't, how do you have access to that? So again, from my perspective, I don't care. Listen, grown women having threesomes with T.I. and Tiny.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that either.
I don't care about that. The only reason why I even paid attention to the story is the possibility of young girls being involved. Even if you don't traffic them, quote unquote, even if you meet them at the concert and bring them backstage and do whatever, that's all I care about. So it's hard to have it is really hard. I hear what you're saying, Kashama, because you're right. A lot of times with Black people, the due diligence is not there. But then when it comes to protecting our young girls,
due diligence is also not there. It's the same.
We gotta have due diligence all around. I think we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah. So,
but so
before we hit the next one, we got some comments that came in. So Lowell had mentioned right bliss. That's the Judge Judy question. Why did you go back? Why did you stay? This alerts the bullshit meter. Soga had mentioned due process should still apply to T.I. and Tiny along with the presumption of innocence, unless you are questioning why he is checking his daughter's hymen. And Nicholas Gunner said if a crime was committed, call the cops.
But a young girl is not going to call the cops. A 15-year-old who went back. Let me just say this. And when I was in my teens, and there have been several times in my teens I had been approached at concerts by people who with the group or with the singer. So I know it happens. So I don't have any salacious stories though. Correct. But I do kinda, but not like what we're talking about here. I don't have that, but I could tell you some stories.
I mean, the other narrative is that, and this is something that we just have to continue to discuss as a people going forward. But as far as if the crime was committed, call the cops. We already know that that's not an effective strategy or for us anyway. So we have to find alternative solutions going forward. So it's just to
let me tell you something. The cops will flip that thing on you so quick. You call yourself calling the cops because you're a victim. You would become a perpetrator so quick, according to them and the law. But we'll move
watched
on.
A Black woman. Y'all, this is a new story. I don't know if you heard about this. I watched a Black woman come home to her apartment and see white men. You saw this. Saw white men in her apartment. They broke the door. They eating her food. They wearing her boyfriend's clothing. And so she calls the cops. And the cops get there. They're inside the apartment. And then she's trying to tell the cops, like, look, I called you. These men they broke into my house. They're thieves, blah, blah, blah. The cops are asking the white men, so what apartment number is this? Do you live here? Are you like trying to get clarity from these men who legitimately broke into a house? And they decide to quote unquote detain them inside the house while the Black woman is outside, and left hysterical because she's not being treated as a victim in this situation at all. So this is when we're talking about, if a crime was committed, call the cops. It's just not the effective strategy, people. Nationwide, it is not the effective strategy.
And because they were white males, they were so comfortable in that, because that was the thing. When you watch the video, they have broken into a house, they have showered in her home, they are
Yes.
eating her food, they are
They went
allowed
full Goldilocks.
exactly. It's a modern human version of gold. That's exactly what it was. And they were sitting around in her house, and not like, when the cops were there, they're having a conversation, like honestly standing there defending themselves. Not honestly, but watching it, they were defending themselves, not with any kind of real fear. The cops are talking to them, having
Your
almost
logic either must be.
you got to
We
see
had
the
some
story.
other current event.
Well, speaking of bizarre stuff,
let's go into some more tomfoolery.
Yeah.
Was it Little Uzi Vert? Little
it's
Uzi.
it's the diamond for us.
It's
I
the
feel
diamond.
some kind of way
It's the
about this
pink
story.
diamond. It's the pink diamond for us.
He was
So
in.
I was joking before it started. Because I had just realized that Bliss wears a Hindi on her forehead, and it's beautiful as ever. But I was like, maybe Little Uzi Vert was just feeling inspired, but no. So those who don't know, Little Uzi Vert has a $24 million pink diamond installed
How do you even do that?
in his forehead. I don't know. I mean, we learned this Black History Month that if you want to install something and keep it there for a very long time, you just need Gorilla Glue. But he went to do something else.
Oh God! Oh God!
A little.
Ooh, I don't have a glass of wine tonight. Oh Lord. Okay.
So my take on this is, I mean, I think it's simple. I think it's like 2 + 2 = 4. Black people grow up in a society where we are constantly told that we ain't blank and constantly devalued. And the minute Black people get money, the first thing we try to do is compensate and add value. He was just creative with it. What all these other celebrities be blowing their money on?
So I have no question that this has to do with a lot of lack of self-esteem and self-worth and affirmation as a Black individual, and him probably questioning his looks, and needing to add something in order to add value and spice to that. I have no question that it's probably a combination of those things. However, there's a level of foolery that some therapists need a therapy for, right? Like if I was a therapist and Little Uzi Vert came into my office space, I would need a therapist at that moment, especially because I don't know. Do you know why he did it? Because he told Fat Joe why he did it. I got the quote right here.
Now, he ain't got to tell me. I know why he did it. He did it when I said he did it. But go ahead, though.
He did it while we speculated to do it. But absolutely, right? But from his mouth, the reason why he did it is, I'm Little Uzi Vert. I'm turned up. So $24 million on a ring, because he originally bought it for a ring, right? Is the stupidest idea, because I'm going to look down and that ring ain't going to be there. He said, I know me. I wake up in odd places in different scenarios. Essentially, he said that he put it in his forehead because he was afraid he would lose the ring. And he knew he wouldn't lose the diamond if it was in his forehead.
Now you lose your life.
What?
He lost his mind many, many moons ago. So there's things that there's priorities here. But he lost his mind and he put a diamond there in place.
Okay, so the real shock for me, I'm going to be honest, because when I see, there's certain people who, when I see their stories, I just go next. That's one of those things. The only thing that got my attention was $24 million. Who is buying?
Lena Lathan, I don't know about this, but she said she heard he financed it.
Well, even with that, how is he selling records like that? Does he have publishing like that? I don't know.
I couldn't tell you one song.
Money. That is a lot of money for an artist who's not been around a decade, I don't think. And I don't know about the sales for that kind of rap, because that's not.
He gonna get repossessed. Can you imagine?
That's what I was about to say. I hate to be the repo man and have to
people get repossessed.
But anyway, so
the Thanos memes is going to be really on point at that point in time if he has to pay back that diamond. That's how.
But another person who tried to disfigured themselves and tried to be in the interest of adding value or beauty or whatever. We had the Gorilla Glue sister,
Tessica Brown. Let's give her name.
Tessica. Say her name.
Unfortunately, I don't want to know this woman's name. Okay, let me tell you the truth here. Let me tell you the truth here, Bliss. So the truth is that I understand that we're not supposed to be calling her Gorilla Glue Girl because it erases her identity as a black woman. I've seen the articles and the think pieces, absolutely. But when I saw this story, I didn't want to put a name to this mess, this foolishness. Did you know she's 40 years old?
I do.
Well, that's the problem in calling her a girl because she's 40, and that's something that routinely happens.
But we didn't know that when you look at that original video.
I did because I knew.
Well, for me and a few other people, when you look at that original video, I mean, all the makeup, the eyelashes,
but it was apparent that she was adult, though, dude. It was apparent that she's grown.
Children.
We want to believe that certain ideas don't happen past the age of 20.
This is another one of those stories, though, that I saw and I just went past because I'm like, okay, this is too insane, too stupid. But this story has grown feet. I mean, it's on major news. Yeah. It's on. I mean, People Magazine covered this. Major TV shows covered this woman. TMZ followed her. So, at first I don't know what to think about this. Are you that removed from reality that you thought, and how do you do when you do that? I didn't understand how that even happened because she styled the hair, the hairspray, as far as I understand. Now I don't do a whole lot with hair, so the hairspray goes on afterwards. Wouldn't you attempt to manipulate and move it around? Wouldn't you have known earlier on that this is something you can't keep in for months? Wouldn't you move to even after you spray your hair to touch it or move it, and that stuff was sickened, and because I couldn't.
Well, I'm not gonna get on a high horse here, but what I will say is that I grew up around, I didn't have any sisters, but I grew up around black women. I had some cousins and stuff like that.
Well, I am a black woman.
Right. Well, of course. But what I'm about to say is, I don't know if you've ever put bonding glue in your hair or not, though, Bliss.
No.
Right. Do you know what bonding glue is?
That's for the weave, right?
For the weave, it smells like rubber, which rubber smells real bad, right? Okay. And it's also very damaging to the scalp and the hair. Mm-hmm. It's brought out a lot of sisters' edges. That's where the whole "she ain't got no edges" thing comes from.
Right.
Weave and hair products that have been created and promoted to black women especially have been doing some damage to sisters for years. Perms, and it's not just sisters. Black people. Period. We do some hell of a stuff to ourselves that don't make no sense. That's damaging. And then when somebody come out with something new, we go to looking like, oh, they crazy. No, hell, they fitting right in. They just didn't create it.
Yeah.
But they got a product called Gorilla Snot anyway. They got some products called Got to Be Glue. They got all of this stuff out there, and people putting it in their hair. And if you read the labels of what it has in it, it's like cetoacetate polymer number 718 from some laboratory.
Well, let me say this. I don't have a judgment about women wearing weaves and wearing hair pieces. You may see me with one day on this show, and I don't want no judgment if I do. But I hearing that and getting back to that reality, it's not as far-fetched as I actually thought it was based on what you said. And also, I don't know if it's Lana or Lena mentioned that there is Gorilla Snot hairspray. So with that, and it does hold the hair for 2 or 3 days, then what she did was not so far-fetched then by grabbing the Gorilla spray. Because if you got Gorilla Snot, The gorilla glue ain't that far off if you're gluing it on. And I guess
it's not about the same people. But look, so I mean, but yes, she did make the story. So the story is that she ran out of gorilla snot. That's what she normally uses. She ran out, and she was apparently in a rush to go somewhere, and so in a rush. To be glue. Yeah, she was in a something. Right. So she was in a rush to go somewhere, and in that rush and needed an emergency fix. She said, well, maybe this will hold because it's glue and it's gorilla, and there we go. And then found out, the story later about what's going on. But thankfully, as Tamina mentioned, all of it is out of her hair now. I watched the video. A black doctor, I believe he's from Ghana? Nigeria. Nigerian doctor in California did the $12,500 surgery for free. And got it all out for her. And funny enough, as soon as it was out, the question that they asked her was, well, now that it's out, are you going to give your scalp some time to rest or to breathe? And she laughed and chuckled. And she said, no, I got a date this weekend because Valentine's is coming up. So she's getting ready to put in a whole new product or perm or situation. Because she needs her hair done.
All right, dude.
So that's Jessica Brown. Anyways, what's going on, people?
Where that $13,000 that she got from her GoFundMe, I guess, too.
To do whatever she wants with. Now, she did go on record saying that she only asked for $1,500 in order to cover the cost of some wigs or cosmetics. But people resonated with her story. She got a verified check mark. She's going to be part of our. For the next at least 1 to 2 years, people are going to remember this name, Jessica Brown, and that she's just part of the landscape of social media now, which I wasn't looking for.
I wasn't.
So to go ahead and get into the actual topic of this evening's broadcast, we're talking about what is the real Black history. There's a lot of fake blackhistory.com going around, and we need to talk about it. But before we get into that, though, let's go to a quick clip. Somebody said we still complaining about Joseph Biden and the Harris administration because we were saying that they aren't doing anything for Black people. And so, I think we should just remind everybody, of some things that may have happened. Adam, you want to play that for us?
I'm not getting audio.
You're not getting audio, Adam.
Technical difficulties abound. People, bear with us.
All right. Well, we may have to move on from that if it doesn't start playing right away. I just wanted to remind people of what they.
Society as a whole in the country. Society as a whole in the country, right? So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No, because whatever benefits that Black people.
All right, that's enough.
And society.
That's all we needed.
No.
That's all we need to remind y'all of.
Why would you think such a thing? I'm not going to do something that specifically is for Black people. That's not.
Y'all ain't even got to stay on it. I just wanted to remind the people what was said, what you got, what you asked for as far as these two, and whatever we say about them. I honestly don't want to hear people, oh, why are you complaining and blah, 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 blah. Because I was, in the beginning, I was saying they need to give Black people something tangible. That's why. And those of you who don't want me to complain, hey, tough cookie. But this is what we are.
Dr. Maurice Franklin disagrees. You know what? We have dropped that link for us, Adam, because when we drop that link for you to come on and talk, we would love for you to speak your piece.
No, because we just played what she said. Don't come on here saying that's not what she said.
I don't understand that comment.
We just played what she said. Anyway, let's move on.
What she said. I get if you. I don't understand the comment. That's not what she said. She clearly said
that's clearly what she said. Cognitive dissonance is a hell of a drug. Is all I can say.
Well, I'm assuming Dr. Maurice is going to get up here and say no. That's not what she said.
Please. Y'all Y'all. No.
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 Oh. Okay. See.
Anyway,
And
so another very I guess what a moment that happened as well during the inauguration. Amanda Gorman, 22-year-old black woman, she's a young sister, delivered the inauguration poem, and she has catapulted to to prominence since. And I wanted us to just hear a little bit of that as well, and let's kind of break down some of this, because I like to affirm a little sister as much as possible. And Bliss, we were talking about this earlier. We want to make it clear that we're not dragging this little sister, but we got to break this down, and we got to analyze this and be critical about what's going on. But Adam, do you think you can go ahead and give us that next clip? Give us a little bit of.
We weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country in the time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother, can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose.
So all I get is more of Obama hope, blind optimism. It's almost like it's like a drug that black people get into, to me, where we just we use all this we. That's why I said we sick boss. We are striving to make a more perfect union. We are this and we are doing that. And last I checked, black people, we were in this alone trying to get freedom. I mean, how do you all feel about that?
So for me personally, I just been highlight was sent to this young girl's poem and narrative, like in this context, simply because, I mean, this is the same dissonance that all of our favorite music artists and everyone else has to go through when they decide to sing the national anthem. Like all of this is in the same lens for me. And so she was invited by Joe Biden, and clearly she's going to have a certain type of framework and mindset and belief system in order to be there at that particular place in the first place for an inaugurational period. And so that's just what it is. So like, her being there, I know that it had affirmed people in the poetry community because they just was loving to see their art form in different places. But far as like her political values or systems, I'm not going for anyone on that platform that would go in that house for their political beliefs. We're not in agreement.
Well, excuse me, correct me if I'm wrong, but at every inauguration, isn't there a poet that comes on?
So the context for that is normally there's different types of performance. So there's what some people categorize as quote unquote spoken word, and then there's like the more classical written poetry that people read. Poets and the communities that I'm familiar with were affirming her because her performing style, as someone mentioned here, was like more quote unquote performative, or would be classified sometimes as spoken word, which requires a little bit more oomph, a little bit more ethnic, in order to produce. So that's the narrative that the poetry community walked away with. But again, I haven't heard anyone actually say that they loved her content, honestly. They were just happy to see her there. that was the walkaways that I got from it. Yeah.
Kashama, I'm hesitant about this for two reasons. Is that I've not done my due diligence, and I don't mind admitting that. I honestly, during the inauguration, I checked out because
I was working.
Yeah, I checked out. So I heard about this young poet, and for the reasons that I'm happy for any young Black person's achievements, I was happy for her that she was selected for that moment, that a young Black woman got selected to be a part of that. I heard the comparisons to Maya Angelou. So I was happy just based on that. I did not, I have to be honest, I wasn't interested enough, though, to listen to her poem. I didn't listen because for me, that whole process, I just am disconnected from. I know who Joe Biden is. I know who Kamala Harris is. And until they prove different, I don't. I'm just not. I'm just not giving so much energy to that. I want to know what they're doing. So I paid attention to those executive orders. All that pomp and circumstance in the show and who you brought in as a poet. I remember when Maya Angelou, what was it for Clinton that she did the poem? The poem, and I figured the Amanda was trying to kind of mimic that or duplicate that moment. So that's not surprising to me. She's 22. So for her, there's time and there's room to grow. This for her has been a platform. She's now signed to a modeling agency. She's now got a PR team behind her.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a pretty girl. So I'm hoping that we'll see growth from her. That's what I'm hoping. I can't speak to this because honestly, I tuned out. I didn't listen to it. I haven't had time, and I hadn't really been interested. I know what to expect from these events.
But Bliss, I mean, you have a great, eye, I guess, for kind of picking out some critical things about issues. You said something that's very important. You said, but I want to take it a bit further because I think it's way more intentional that comparison to Maya Angelou is made. I think more than just her set it up that way. I think the orchestrators, and we know who the orchestrators are all the time, they set it up that way. And I think that their purpose is to groom her to be this voice of symbolism and Black hope and mindless optimism and, just kind of a blind view or rose-colored view of this country and where we are at this late and critical hour in 2021. You still talking about we and our founding fathers. Like we got to pray for
the Democratic
we got to take her under our wing, man. Somebody got to pull her on cold.
On our timeline, at least on mine, who legitimately said they cringed when she said our forefathers, like because a lot of us are sipping the Kool-Aid, but there's just certain things that it wakes us up for a moment. Like, wait, ours? Like mine? I don't think that was the right terminology to use here. But we're going to navigate with this system.
Before, do you think Maya Angelou was that?
So she did poems for Bill Clinton and someone else I believe Dr. Maurice Franklin, who's going to join us very soon, had mentioned that as well. I would need to go back and listen to her political quote unquote poems. I don't have enough context to know. I know more about the classical Maya that was not part of the political landscape. That was more of her personal poems about her journey.
Maya's life was a bit more political to me than her actual poems, because remember she did work with Dr. King for a while when he was not Dr. King, Malcolm X for a while. After he had left the Nation of Islam, he founded the God, please don't let me say it, WAPO, or African People's Organization. Forgive me, Brother Malcolm, for messing up the name. But yeah, she worked with him for a while, and she spent a lot of time on the continent as well during the anti-colonial movements, and was kind of tied in with that stuff.
But at the end of her life, remember her alignment was with Oprah and the Clintons.
We have guests coming.
It's good that we unpack this stuff, though. We can't pretend like this stuff didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? We got to be real about it and look at Black history, and let's look at the real Black history. You know what I'm saying? And analyze.
And it's no disrespect. It just is what it is.
Right. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But we do have brother Dr.
So I correcting that. We found out that there was technical difficulties. He needed to leave for a sec, so he said that he will be joining. He did leave a message and say that he'll be joining us next week, and so we look forward to that. So with that being said, the line is still open, people. If you would love to join in and chat with us, Tomina, Latham, we miss you. So come on through.
Now in the comments, there was a comment in here that I really I saw, and I was like, oh man, that's good, that's funny. Not funny, but what was it? I'll find it. But anyway, so we also got some other stuff going on that is supposed to be Black history. They're talking about putting Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. I mean, we got some Black
as digital currency is taking hold and money's being phased out. Okay.
I mean, so funny enough, and I gotta see if I can find this video. Listen, anyone that is with us right now, join our community by texting the number 410-826-6264. You can have personal chats with us through the text line. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because about 2 years ago, some youth, Black youth, had did a poem exposing the hypocrisy of putting Harriet Tubman on a $20 bill. Because for those who don't know, Harriet Tubman died pretty much of poverty. She died impoverished by the time that she passed away from her sicknesses. The U.S. Army had took like 3 years before they decided to give her any money for her work in the Army, for her work as espionage. And they had said a specific thing that said that it was so ironic that you're looking at a woman who was once traded as currency and then to put her face on it as if that somehow is restitution or justice for her legacy. And so there's an amazing poem that these young Black women had did, who was still in high school at the time, for her. So if you would love to hear that poem and get that link, text out number 410-826-6264. We can have a little powwow discussion about that poem.
And Lena or Lene Latham said, I would love to join, and I promise I will one day, but I have a 4-year-old in the background that will not let me be great. It will happen soon. Listen, you better give that baby an organic granola bar so he can be chewing on something and he stops the shadow. But yeah, that's ridiculous. And Bliss, it's funny you pointed out how we're moving into digital currency now, and cash is becoming somewhat obsolete. And now you want to put Harriet Tubman's face on the $20 bill.
Right? Is it going to be like a collector's item? I mean, is that what is it? Symbolism, and it'll be like limited edition collector's item, like when the Franklin Mint advertises their coins and people. I mean,
I just want to mention for our commenters real quick that we love y'all so much because when we are struggling to remember things, y'all go ahead with the Google research and correct us in there. Y'all are our teleprompters because we don't have any working in our home offices, and we appreciate you all so much. So thank you so much for mentioning that. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what? In terms of the Harriet Tubman, you can pay me my reparations, and I'll take it in that, and then I'll put it over.
Keep them white folks on that money and just
the precursor to reparations. Then okay, we get Black money for reparations. Okay, I'll have it that way. But other than that, I mean, people are unemployed. Who's getting these 20s? So
now that I think about it, Bliss. I guess I am going to make the request that when the reparations happen, I want it all in Harriet Tubman bills.
Right, only
the HT bills around here.
I want mine in gold or crypto.
Right. Well, we converted to gold, but start out with the Harriet Tubman. I'll have a few of those sitting around for collectors.
So, one thing they don't like to talk about. Because they punish this nation to this very day for what they did to white power. Why we can't never hear about the Haitian Revolution during Black History Month? Why we can't never be reminded of the L's that white power took?
Well, it's just not part of the curriculum. We can absolutely as individuals.
That's our job.
I was me and Kashama did some work this week with our programmatic duties, and You know, I had to specifically work around mentioning Black women throughout history, and these people who were counselors and teachers didn't know who they were. And my proposal to them was, is that if you don't know, then how can the students know? And I was mentioning people like Fannie Lou Hamer, the full history of Harriet Tubman. They didn't know that Harriet Tubman worked with Susan B. Anthony and the women's suffrage movement. They didn't know about Ida B. Wells. And so this is, you know, the kind of things that we're up against when it comes to the curriculum in education systems. Is not built for us. We have to strategically move in and change things ourselves for that.
Well, okay, so both you and Bliss are saying, you know, we can do that. That's up to us, and I agree. I'm all about self-determination. Okay, however, and that this doesn't negate that at all. I think it's very important that we always keep a sharp eye and analysis for media, because that's what we're up against, really. I don't think we're so much up against the educational, we're up against the educational institutions as well, or the so-called educational institutions, but media plays a much stronger role as well, because corporations get into this and they go to pushing Black History Month. You know, it's all of our history. And then they go to pushing out Kamala Harris, no, and all of this, you know, crazy stuff. And that's the only narrative we get. We came out of slavery. That was the beginning. We marched and sang to be included and get white folks to love us. And now they love us. And now we got Obama, Harris, and Tubman on the 20. And we are striving to make a more perfect union now.
It's, you know what, I'm done with this live stream at this point, because you just traumatized me with the history of America that we still got to deal with. I'm over it, all right?
Advertisers do whatever makes money. So when I was a kid, Black History Month, you didn't see a whole lot of advertisement, but companies weren't trying to be a part of that. It was in school. You know, you heard about it in school, and basically the only person I knew Black was Martin Luther King. And because I was in a white school, so Martin Luther King was the safe Negro that white people enjoy talking about. Keep in mind, now Martin Luther King's history is revisionist history. We know that as a grown person.
We did a stream on that. Yep, we're good.
So, you know, there wasn't this thing about advertising. Advertisers do what's popular, what's going to make them money. So as we change the tide and demand more and talk more and are more assertive, they jump on the bandwagon. They don't lead it. So that's why I said it's up to us. They're not leading in advertising. They do whatever they think is going to make money. Oh, Black folks want to talk about the Haitian Revolution. Let's include that in advertising this year. They follow what makes money. That's all they care about. They don't care about Black History Month. They're not going to set the standard for it. They follow whatever they think we're doing and what we want to hear. As long as they can coax some dollars out of us. That's all they're looking for.
And it's also as long as it keeps us docile. They're not going to put it in
exactly. They're not adding to the story, right?
I have a different take on that, but I do want to welcome brother Soga Upindo, who has joined us, and he can join us and
hold on, family. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
What's on your mind, brother?
Okay. No, I just wanted to chime in on a few things that you said. Someone said something recently.
Yeah. Facebook, StreamYard, something's happening.
Mercury in retrograde. What's going on?
Okay, now we just heard the Chuck. You know what? Maybe there's a delay. There may be a delay too.
Oh, yeah. So they were saying sarcastically, they said, yeah, of course, America has always respected Black women on paper.
Oh.
So,
on paper,
you know,
yes.
this,
okay.
you know, putting the sister on paper is like, yeah, you know, the ultimate thing is like, but that's not even true, of course. Not even on paper, you know, has the respect been there. But yeah, with the Haitian Revolution, that's the other thing too. We get so caught up in one thing that we've been doing on our page is just kind of showing like quotes every day, daily, you know, Black history, but not this romanticized version of Black history, we try to show a lot of the revolutionaries, a lot of the deep thinking, the thought that's not necessarily the kumbaya stuff that is kind of force fed to us. And as you said, you would think some of these people from our history are not obscure, but there's Ida B. Wells, a lot of the stuff she did with lynching. So the hope is that folks will see some of these quotes from some of our freedom fighters through the years, and also then be empowered to say, maybe I need to know more about these trailblazers and what they did.
I definitely agree, and I appreciate you coming in and contributing that, brother.
Yeah.
What does Soga Upindo stand for, if you don't mind? Soga, is that an acronym?
Yeah. Soga is actually is derived from the Spanish word for rope. And it's a long story, but the organization is built on this whole notion of unity, where you take individual strands and it doesn't give you a lot of power, but when you bring those strands together, you twist it, you cajole it. Now you have something that's stronger than the individual strands. And Upendo is Swahili for love.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for that breakdown and your analysis, brother.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. All right.
Just want to shout out to Mina and Latham, and thank you, Soga, for joining. Shout out to you two for joining us week after week. I'm also going to urge you all to join in with our live streams going forward, because you can't leave Bliss by herself up here. You can't just have men continuously come up here and chat with us.
Oh, okay.
You gotta help us out here, have some balance going on.
Bring the sisters on. I mean,
the sisters got
to invite them through. Because me and Kashama, we fools, but we not foolish. And
we are Black baby and Black children friendly. So if you got a child running wild in the background, that's okay. I got nieces and nephews that be, doing stuff. I give them something.
Bliss holds it down for the sisters. Absolutely.
I don't want to know. Is it Lana or is it Lana or Lena? If you
or Lene.
Yeah, every week we've been changing it. Spell it out phonetically for us.
Y'all been calling everything. So just if you could put the pronunciation, how do you want us to pronounce it so we're saying it right? We want to say your name right, please. Okay, I guess it's coming. Okay.
Yeah, at some point.
Now back to this though, about it being about the money, because I agree. We know that capitalism is the economic, engine of white power dominance over the planet, and it's all about the money. It's the
motivating factor.
But I think, she said Lana. Okay, great. Thank you, Lana.
Lana.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So, but what I will say is that I think they have shown that they will sacrifice some coins to make sure that they are strategic in promoting or propagating a message that will keep Black people confused and docile, because it's more for the long run. And the more I'm learning about stocks and stuff, and I'm seeing how white power operates, they will go through something where if they need to raise money, they'll sell their shares at a lower price just to guarantee that they're making that money, and it'll cause the stock to go down for a little bit temporarily. But in the long run, it's going to go back up. So you ride that little dip out. You know what I'm saying? They operate like that. And I'll give you an example.
It's about making the money. It doesn't matter if you got to dip it down to get it back up. It's still at the end of the day about making the money. See, they know the strategic ways to do it that we don't understand.
But my point is, they'll never make a Haitian Revolution movie, no matter how much money it'll make, because they realize what they stand to lose in the long run is too great. And I'll give you an example. The Nat Turner movie, I think would have done so much better if Fox hadn't bought it and suppressed it.
I have a question. This is something for my personal research, but I'm remembering the Shaka Zulu film, and to my knowledge, that was a success. It was a series that was turned into a movie or something like that. But they also mentioned that they would never do a project like that again. So that's something for us to consider. But welcome in, Cortez. Hello.
Cortez.
Hey, how are y'all? What's up?
Finally made it in, my brother.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there, trying to make some things happen. I heard what was going on, what y'all were talking about. As far as that whole thing with the Harriet Tubman being on the money, I basically been saying the same thing for the past few years about how it's an insult to put her on that money. The same money that was used to buy and sell our people. That's not an honor. Unfortunately, a lot of our people see that as an honor because they want acceptance from this country. But it's not an honor at all. It's a total insult. And then on top of that, you still have the enslavers on the rest of the money. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So,
and on the back of it, in their quotes, in their language.
Let me ask this question. So if it's a dishonor to put her on an existing piece of currency, do you say that you create is there a way to honor a Black iconic person and include them in currency? Do you have to, would you need another bill create? Is there a way to do that? Is that just not a way to honor a Black person by putting them on currency? Because I'm going to tell you, when I've gone to islands and places where I've had money with Black people on it, I felt a little different. I honestly did. But I understand the issue that happens here in this country. But when I've gone other places and I changed over that American currency and it's all brown and black, all Black faces I'm like, oh, look at this. This happens. On the little coin, you got a Black face on it on the bills. It feels different. It does. But I get the issue.
That's a different story. Yeah.
But would you feel better? Anybody can answer this. If you had a different denomination, if it's a $3 bill or I don't think it's $3. Or
in this country, no, I would not feel differently. I don't think
there's no way to do that.
Person. Okay. No, not here.
From your perspective. Okay.
I think, and thank you for that. And that's an excellent question, Bliss. For me, I think if this country's culture match this action, match the idea of this particular action, then I would be okay with it. But this country's culture is absolutely exploitive. And I'm thinking also, in addition to that Harriet Tubman's legacy, the part that she's specifically known for, is leading 300 people out of slavery and towards quote unquote freedom. And if the idea is to honor her particular messaging, as well as some of the things that she did later in life, because her idea was all for freedom, period, including economic freedom, is for Harriet Tubman's image, likeliness, currency, whatever, to be specifically about getting Black people out of economic oppression. And if we're going just the economy route, if we're just going currency, get us out of economic oppression, reparations. This is what I'm looking at as your quote unquote good faith movement.
Mm-hmm. Can I say something about Martin Luther King right quick?
Sure.
We hear about this I Have a Dream speech every year, that one little section from that 18-minute speech about joining hands with white boys and white girls to push this message that that's all he was about, getting us to come together with white folks. Well, by the time he was about to be murdered, he wasn't into that so-called dream anymore. It had become a nightmare. Nobody wants to talk about him saying, I feared I led my people into a burning home, because he regretted integration. He saw that it was a mistake. And if we really truly want to honor him, and if these white folks who claim to be about wanting to honor Martin so much, well, he was pursuing reparations at the time that he was murdered. So if you really want to truly honor him.
And I say that whenever I post something about Martin Luther King around his birthday and in honor of him, I mention that same point. But here's the problem. It's so many of us who only go for the I have a dream. It's so many of us who are so unaware of what led to actually his murder, is that he started to answer economics. He started to wake up from the dream. So that's a point I'm with you on that. But we don't do enough of it.
Because we want to keep white folks comfortable. That's why.
But I want us to do.
We want to keep white folks comfortable. So we only mention the quotes that keep this society intact.
I think it's because we're so unaware.
Well, I posted stuff before, like somebody put an angry face emoji on the fact that I posted the quote about I feared I led my people into a burning house.
And that person looked like you, right? That person looked like you.
Yes.
The person,
a black person.
Was a Black person is what I'm saying.
The Black person that put an angry face emoji because
that's
I posted that quote from Martin Luther King.
That's
because they want to just hear, because we've been trained to want to keep white folks comfortable and to keep them in charge of us, and we become complacent on the plantation. That's why they get angry, even when I point out stuff that Martin Luther King was saying at the time of his death. Like in his very last speech, the day before he was murdered, he said, because he was fed up, take your monies out of white banks and put your money into the black-owned banks. They don't want to hear that either.
Well,
they don't want to hear the speeches. They don't want to hear the speeches where he talked about being black and proud.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Cortez. I'm actually telling Adam, I'm giving him the link right now. So for those who don't know, we did a live stream on Dr. King, and the truth about him is titled "This Country Never Loved Dr. King" about 3 weeks ago. We would love for you all to check that out. Just sent it for Adam to post that in the comment sections. We are actually at the wrap-up moment at time. Adam just posted
one more thing. Actually, his daughter.
Cortez, I'm sorry, we gotta wrap it up, Cortez.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to wrap it up. But I definitely appreciate your contribution. You can definitely come back next week when we do this again.
Yes.
Okay, y'all.
But a very wise sister by the name of Lauryn Hill once said, what the people want is fantasy, but reality is what they need. And so I think that's going to be my takeaway when it comes to what is the real Black history. What are y'all thoughts, Bliss and Duke?
I mean, that's a lot of the issue. Just like, piggybacking off of the conversation we just had about, you post anything different or uncomfortable, it's a lot of times your own folks that are challenging you on it, whether it's factual or not. They just want to hear the information. I mean, I can see if you're putting opinion about something up, but you place a fact up, something that's irrefutable, and you oftentimes will have your own coming after you. So yeah, I agree with there's nothing to debate about the comment. It is what it is. Lauren was right. God bless her, by the way, because we never see her. But that's.
I want to close out by actually reading Tamina's comment. She said, I think the fact that the first and only woman to be represented on a currency bill who happens to be Black is something. And we can argue about the selection, but maybe we can do more to change how our currency reflects America as a whole. And that's a messaging that I can agree with and support. We haven't done it in this iteration of the work, but I actually do a presentation that talks about the importance of symbols. I know that some of us was questioning and talking about symbols, but symbols can be very, very useful if used correctly, and you're having the right symbols to affirm all of our messaging. And so I want to give a shout out to all of our viewers. Thank you for joining us week after week. If you have not joined our community, please text that number scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now, 410-826-6264. Again, if you want to hear that poem by the youth, hit us up. I got to find the link, so give me a little bit of time. But it'll be really, really dope for everyone to have a conversation about why people are looking at this Harriet Tubman situation a little sideways. But thank you for joining us this week. I'm signing out.
Likewise. Love you, family.
Love you.
Yeah.
Bye.